You ready for this?
Y'all ready for this?
Okay.
It's the Anime Movie Podcast with your hosts, Kat and Joe.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Anime Movie Podcast with your hosts. I'm Kat.
I'm Joe. That was aggressive.
He meant it today.
I had a Mountain Dew before this, and I was aggressive out of the bat.
Today we are talking about the secret world of Arrietty from 2010, Studio Ghibli. This was released in America as a dub in 2012, 2 years later. And Joe told me a fun fact that this had a British dub as well.
Yeah, there's two different dubs. And the British dub was the cinematic debut of one Mr. Tom Holland.
Yeah.
Spider-Man.
The Borrowers is what this is based off of, which is a very familiar title to a British audience. Not such a familiar title to a North American audience.
Yeah, I'd never heard of it before.
Yeah, this film is directed by Hiromasa Yonebayashi. For some reason, when I looked at his last name, it looked like a honeybee to me for a second. But
Yeah, it
none of
does.
the letters are in the right order. So I have no idea why it looks like that to me. But apparently he's nicknamed Morrow.
Morrow?
Yeah,
Why?
I don't know. But that's what Wikipedia told me.
Great fun fact.
I don't know. They're like known as Morrow. And I was like, okay,
Okay.
sure. He was at the time the youngest to ever direct a film for Studio Ghibli. And he later on went to create a new studio called Studio Ponoc.
Oh, he did?
In 2014 with another Ghibli person who was a producer, but he'd been working at Ghibli for 18 years. And the producer's name was Yoshiaki Nishimura. And the first film they made there was Mary and the Witch's Flower. But he also directed When Marnie Was There, which I think was still Studio Ghibli because it came out in 2014. And that's the year he left Studio Ghibli. So I think he must have still made that with Ghibli.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was a Ghibli. But yeah, this is his directorial debut after working on, Princess Mononoke and Spirited Away and Howl's Moving Castle as an animator. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Pretty cool for him to make history like that, become the youngest Ghibli person. I think that I read that there's only 4 films that are Ghibli that weren't directed by Miyazaki or what's the other guy's name? Shit. The guy that did Grave of the Fireflies.
I've forgotten too. It starts with an I.
That sucks to be that guy right now. He's listening to this just like a single tear. Oh, it's fine. You guys, don't worry about it.
I mean, this came out in 2010, which now is 12 years ago.
Yeah.
We should really look up his name. I feel bad.
The other guy?
Yeah.
No.
Who directed Pompoko and
Yeah, he's
My
just
Neighbor
the other guy.
Yamada's and Grave with the Fireflies. Wait for it.
Isao Takahata.
Isao Takahata. Yes, Isao Takahata. This film, it reminded me a little bit of Howl's Moving Castle, just because the fact that it is based off of a British children's fantasy novel. So you get this kind of mixture of some of these like British cultural things with some Japanese cultural things. The book came out in 1952. It's by author Mary Norton. And this film follows along a lot of the storyline. It's not like a lot of the other films that we've seen that are animes that are based off of books where they've changed so many things.
Yeah, like Ponyo is like kind of based off of The Little Mermaid, but it's nothing like The Little Mermaid like that we are familiar with.
When I was living in the UK is kind of when I started hearing about The Borrowers, because it's kind of this, I don't know what you'd call it. It's not quite folklore. It's not quite an inside joke, but people will talk about like, where's my little if you just like lose a pin, like I had a pin, where did it go? That it's like, oh, a borrower took it. So this kind of became this kind of cultural phenomenon that people, still kind of reference.
Did you ever end up reading it?
No, I never read it.
Well, some fake
Sorry.
British person you are.
Sorry, when I was in college and grad school, I wasn't reading children's books.
Well, would have been pretty helpful now, don't you think?
But early on, when we were doing some Ghibli film reviews, a friend of mine, Andrew Henderson, shout out to Drew, was like, "When are you going to do, Secret World of Arrietty? Have you, seen it yet?" And at that time, I hadn't seen it yet. This is my first viewing. But Drew, we did it. We're talking about it. It's happening.
You happy now? You happy, Drew?
And I met Drew through my good friend David Fagiani,
who we had on the podcast for Porco Rosso.
This film is the David Fagiani approved perfect length of 90 minutes.
90-minute movies, man. They're fantastic. Yeah, we were originally going to watch another anime movie tonight, and then we saw that it was 2 hours long, and we're like, oof. Nope. What? Secret World of Arrietty's 90 minutes? Yeah, there we go. It's what we're doing.
But to jump back for a second, like you were mentioning, this isn't like Ponyo, where it's like a complete reimagining. It's vaguely based off of Little Mermaid.
Mm-hmm.
But this has like the same character names and broadly the same plot. But the book starts out with this auntie telling her niece this story, and she's like, "Oh, my brother once saw these little people who take things, because the little girl apparently was sewing and was missing some things." She's like, "Where did my thread go?" or whatever. And she was like, "Oh, it must have been taken by the borrowers." And she was like, "The what?" And then, so it's like this,
oh, you didn't know?
so it's like this story within a story, but it's about a little boy who comes from India to stay with family abroad to take care of him while he has an illness. And he makes contact with Arrietty.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a deal, because he's still kind of learning English because it's his second language.
Mm-hmm.
And she's teaching him English because she's very well read, apparently. And he's like helping steal things from the house.
Okay. That's kind of different than what we saw.
Yeah. It is kind of different.
But yeah, there's little people living in the walls, and them trying to avoid human recognition. And then, a boy does see one of the borrowers, and then he's like doing favors for them. And I don't know if they really did any favors for him.
No.
Yeah, it's really a one-way relationship.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's doing something for, like, the novelty is doing something for him.
Yeah.
But other than that, not so much. Yeah, so that is sort of the spoiler-free synopsis of it.
Yeah, and then there's obviously like conflict, like the parents of the borrowers of Arrietty, who is a little girl. Her parents are like, you should never be seen by humans, and then she befriends one of the humans, and then the parents are like, that was a bad move, so we got to move now. And there's other conflict going on because, obviously if like you found that there were little tiny, IMDb says they're 4-inch people living in your house, of course you're going to be curious and like want to investigate and like see how they live life. So they're like, and it even is said in the movie, like once humans have an interest, their curiosity never ends. So I could understand like wanting to be like, all right, enough with the fucking experiments or whatever you're about to do.
Yeah, and I think that this movie does a really great job of being super imaginative of, how the borrowers would set up their home, what they would use for different decorations. There's so many little details in the background that you can totally miss if you're not looking for it. But there's just so every single background, there's so much thought that goes into where that thing might have come from.
Yeah.
Every room has like this full story behind it, which is so lovely.
Yeah, because they basically are stealing everything from the house that the humans that they live in. So, like along the walls, their like artwork is a stamp, and there's just like gigantic scissors that they have to, I guess, try and operate, and earrings and all kinds of little things that you would lose and be like, where did I put that? And then just give up on it,
Yeah. And they're using it for like ice climbing picks to get up curtains.
Yeah, which is
those
very
earrings you lost.
Very, everybody in this movie, all the borrowers have got to be super, super strong.
Yeah.
Like those people are strong climbers and they have great cardio. These are some ripped ass tiny people,
Yeah, I'm kind of curious because like the title Secret World of Arrietty or Arrietty.
Arrietty.
Is not a direct translation of what they called it in Japanese, which was Arrietty, the borrower. And I kind of wonder if that had to do with the fact that a lot of people aren't familiar with the book in North America. But then I think that's what they called it in England as well. So that's weird.
Oh, they called it the Secret World of Arrietty in England?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not well. I never, like I said, I never heard of the borrowers before this, but you were like, you never heard of it? And I was like, no. And then it come to find out you didn't even fucking read it. Get off my case.
I hadn't read it. It's true.
Woman.
But like, as we were watching it, I kept thinking about like, why is the borrower such a familiar term to me? And I realized it's like, oh, is that 10 years I spent in the UK and this is a British novel. And it's definitely in the British psyche.
Yeah. So, the animation's really stellar. Like it looks really nice. It's very fluid.
Yeah.
It's Ghibli. It's really good.
Yeah. This is definitely Ghibli style. Those eyes that don't have a lot of detail that look usually quite black from a distance. Sometimes when you get closer, you can kind of see the color of the eye, but it doesn't do that overly shiny or sparkly thing that
or realistic. Like it's a cartoon.
Yeah.
And they're not trying to hide it.
Yeah. A lot of the backgrounds can get really detailed. There was one background where I was just like, those leaves look real.
Well, even like the inside of their house, when you're looking at the backdrops of what's going on in the house, like it's beautiful and so detailed and ornate. It looks very nice. Like it kind of reminded me of those super ornate backdrops in Spirited Away that are like so detailed.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And there's only one CGI moment where I was like, oh, I don't particularly like that. But it wasn't really off-putting. It was just enough to be like, oh, CGI is happening. But they do that POV through trees or going down a path or something. It's
yeah,
pretty
they did that
popular.
in Spirited Away too.
They did it in Spirited Away. They did it in, this isn't a Ghibli film, but they did it in Wolf Children.
Oh yeah,
like running through the forest. But seems like a common anime use of CGI.
Maybe it's just easier to do that.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure it must be.
But yeah, the animation's really detailed. I enjoyed it. It's Ghibli, They have their own distinct, like, you can watch it and be like, no, this is Ghibli.
Yeah. And I think that this film is a good continuation of Miyazaki's legacy. Miyazaki was one of the people who wrote the screenplay for it, along with somebody called Keiko Niwa.
Well, he also, I think, was like executive producer or something, because I saw like a story about how the director was like really nervous about directing for the first time, and he would consult with Miyazaki, and then eventually he was like, no, stop, I got to do this myself. This is my thing.
Yeah.
Then Miyazaki was like, right on, dude, you do you. This isn't my thing. You direct it. And he said that Miyazaki was very proud of him for taking the reins and not just like solely relying on Miyazaki. Because like you obviously could do that. Just be like, hey, so what do you think about this, Mr. Miyazaki? And then it's basically just directed by Miyazaki, but you put your name on it. So kudos to, oh man, what's his name again? The director?
His name is, we can call him Morrow for short.
Oh yeah,
that's his nickname.
Kudos to Morrow for taking the reins and having some agency over it. Because I would probably be like consulting Mr. Miyazaki quite a bit if it was my first thing. And I'm sure like Miyazaki didn't mind, and that's why he was there to. It's also his studio.
I mean, they probably almost had to stop him from directing it himself. Like
Yeah.
he kept coming out of retirement. He was probably just like one step away from being like, it's okay, I'll just direct it. Don't worry about it.
The voice acting, there were some big names, and not just the British version, which had Tom Holland, which he was a nobody back then. But so we watched the North American dub, which had Amy Poehler and Will Arnett and
Carol Burnett.
Like, these are big names. I found it a little distracting because I always enjoy it more when it's like no-name people. I don't like it when celebrities are doing voiceover.
Yeah, unless they're putting on a different kind of voice, or you can't really tell. Like if Mark Hamill did it, it's like, cool. Mark Hamill can do a million different kinds of voices, and you can't always tell that it's him.
Yeah.
But Will Arnett's voice is very Will Arnett.
Well, I thought that he was good in this, and I could believe him, and it wasn't too distracting. But like Amy Poehler, I feel like is such a recognizable voice for me, just because I love Saturday Night Live and I loved Parks and Rec, and also I feel like her voice was too young for the character that she was portraying. Like the mom looked much older, and Amy Poehler has like a young kind of youthful voice. So when she was starting to talk, and you look at the mother, it just didn't add up for me.
Yeah, I was thinking about other sort of mothers that Amy Poehler has played, and I was thinking about Mean Girls.
Oh yeah,
and
not a real mom, I'm a
yeah,
cool mom.
with like the chihuahua chewing on her fake tits and her not even noticing.
Yeah,
but that the young voice for a mom works for the mom who doesn't want to be a mom age. But yeah, I could see what you're talking about. For me, it was Will Arnett's voice was so him, even though it was this like deadpan thing because they were doing his like the dad's a strong silent type. But every time he spoke, I could just see his face.
Yeah, and I could see that. Yeah, I mean, like the first part of the movie, 90% of his dialogue is just grunts.
Yeah.
Just like, It's like, damn, dude, get a script.
But I just think, with the level of imagination that went into this film, with seeing small people navigate the landscape of the larger world, I think that they never forgot to put that in or make a point of it. And I think it's one of those things that if you didn't have enough of that in there, that this would feel kind of shallow. But it is almost impossible when like a cricket is the size of like half of one of these people's bodies.
Yeah, so I was watching it. I was just imagining like how dangerous the world would be if you were 4 inches. Like a gust of wind could really just destroy you. And they did a great job of putting the detail into like they're making tea, and it looks like it's just a drop, but you know how like just a drop moves differently than just a flowing thing of water. Like they did a really great job of that and showing like all of the danger that could happen to these 4-inch tall people, and what a crazy world it is. Like there's a point where they're standing above like a couple of rats, and to them like rats are huge into these giant predators, I guess.
Horrifying. Yeah, I kept thinking about that, just how horrifying the whole world becomes. They look at a lizard at a distance, but it's like that would be like a Komodo dragon to them. It would be
not like an alligator.
Yeah.
Dude. Like not even like that's so big to them. Yeah, it's so dangerous. And like they're climbing up these things that would be like climbing up the Burj Khalifa, and it's just like part of their world. But they have to get used to that because that's their life. And if they're going to be living in a house and they need to get their necessary items in order to survive, they're just going to have to be like these stellar rock climbing, rope climbing, no fear of heights type of people. And there's a scene in the beginning where Arrietty comes out of a cupboard and she's just like looking into this house, and it's just this enormous, massive world. And she even says like, it's so big.
Yeah.
And the dad's like, pod.
Yeah, and apparently in the book, she gets into an argument with the boy because she's saying like, oh, the number, because she'd never been outside of the world. She'd never seen other borrowers. She'd never seen, anything. So when she gets out and she meets this kid and they're talking, she's like, you're crazy. There's no way that there's that many people in the world because, there's not enough to sustain that. Like, it just blows her mind. He's like, there's like millions of people just in India where I come from. And she gets super upset. And I think that's kind of clever because I think you would. It's such an assault on your understanding of the world when you've seen so little and know so little. So it's like this childlike understanding of the world and family, et cetera. But, she's almost 14 or however old she is.
Well, it's also like they haven't seen any other borrower. So Arrietty has no one else in her life except for her parents. And then like, after the kid discovers her and then they kind of have like a thing, but that's such a lonely existence. And
So
the mom is worried about like, are there any other borrowers out there? Like we haven't seen any in a long time. It's like, all you have is one daughter. Like this is going to be the end of the line for you if you don't find another borrower, dude. Like,
yeah. And they don't even go into that.
Yeah.
That idea. I just think that this is such a cute idea. I think that, it's really nice when we culturally have stories that explain phenomena, and that usually becomes sort of folklore or myth and legend. And it's just this really sweet idea that, these little things go missing, and, they totally do. And this idea that these little people live in the walls or under the floorboards or whatever, and take them, and it's just so nice. It's so cute. And of course, that's not the original idea of this film, but I can totally see why Studio Ghibli would want to make a film about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it is very cute. Like that weird, just silly explanation of like, it's like, this is way out of left field and it's kind of related, but South Park had an episode called like the Underpants Gnomes. And it's like whenever you have a pair of underwear go missing in the laundry, like, underpants gnomes must have got them. So it's kind of like that,
Yeah.
but they made it a lot more raunchy and South Parky.
Sure.
So yeah, it's cute. I don't think do we really have any of that in America? Like, is there a reference of like if we do
I'm
something
sure
like,
people have that within their own families. That sounds like the sort of inside joke a family would have about, whatever takes the socks that go missing when you are like, I have all these pairs of socks. Where's the pair that goes with this other sock?
Yeah.
Dryer gnomes or whatever they might have. I had a friend who used to say it was dolphins. They had a running joke in their family that dolphins took things or moved things when I don't know why.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess we have Santa Claus.
Sure.
He leaves stuff.
Yeah, he leaves stuff. He doesn't take it. Imagine if Christmas is a holiday where a fat man comes down the chimney and steals some of your things.
Right? That would suck.
That'd be awful.
Opposite Santa.
Yeah, in the days leading up, you learn to appreciate the stuff because you don't know what's going to be taken. Oh, God,
it's December 25th. Everybody, you're like sleeping with your most prized possessions.
Yeah.
So reverse Santa can't steal it. All right, should we get into spoilers?
Yeah, we should get into spoilers for sure.
They wouldn't spoil this, right?
Oh,
You
God!
can't spoil this,
Spoilers!
right?
Don't spoil
Spoiler talk, anime movie podcast, spoiler talk.
What's the maid's like deal? Why does she want to capture? So there's a maid in this story, and like after the sick boy Sean makes contact with Arrietty, he's like wants to help Arrietty. He's like fascinated by her and wants to like continue to be like friends with her and be like, oh my God, you're so cool. And then his aunt, who he's staying with, she has heard like legend of like, oh, they're the borrowers. Like they're these little people that live in the walls. And it's like a story that goes down through her generations. And like this house is legendarily got little people living in it.
And it's his first time, I guess, being at this house because his
Yeah.
parents sent him there because he has some kind of an illness. He's leading up to having some kind of a heart surgery, but his parents don't have time to give him the care that he needs.
Yeah.
So he's in his aunt's house with Hara, the maid, who's also there.
And Hara, as soon as she kind of figures out that there are little people, she's like, I'm going to trap them and no one's going to think I'm crazy. But it's like everyone in this house believes that there are little people. So like, who's thinking that you're crazy?
Yeah, I mean, they kind of, and maybe I missed something. Maybe I wasn't paying attention for a second, but they're kind of talking about how the boy's mother or the grandfather were like staunchly believed that there were little people to the point where they made this beautifully ornate, fully functional dollhouse to their size and wanted to give it to them, but then they weren't able to for some reason.
Well, I think it's because the borrowers want to stay hidden.
Yeah.
But they were like, we always hoped that they would live in this dollhouse.
Yeah. But the aunt kind of treats it as this, like, it was this thing that they had in their head, but she doesn't sound like she's sure that there definitely are around. Mm-hmm. She might be like borrower agnostic.
But I mean, even if that's the case, she could capture and be like, look. But instead she's like, I'm going to trap them. And she calls like an exterminator. Like if she was agnostic toward it and she found proof of them, I would be like, Sean, look what I found. They do exist. They do exist.
Yeah, I mean, no, I think the aunt is agnostic, but Hara's reaction is surprising because I don't think that we really find out that anybody thought she was crazy.
Yeah, I don't know. But that's what I was saying. Like if everyone in the house believes it except for her, and she's like kind of like, okay, whatever. If I were her, I would have like caught it and been like, look, you were right. Instead of, I don't know what her end goal was after trapping Homily into the jar.
Yeah, and it might have made more sense if the aunt was like, they don't exist. That was just a fairy tale or whatever. But I don't remember a moment where she kind of shamed Hara or anything like that. So yeah, I agree with you. I think that she 180s from being like a kind of innocuous extra character, just kind of an extra body that's around, to suddenly so evil.
Yeah,
just suddenly so awful.
Yeah, and like I said, like evil for seemingly no reason. Like, and just, I mean, it is kind of scary when you see how big she is to, Homily. When she's taking Homily and just like, I got you. And she's like, I'm going to put you in a jar. It's like, why? Just let him be,
Yeah. And I don't know how I would react, but I don't think I'd try and catch it. But, if I saw a mouse, I wouldn't try to catch it either. If it's small and it's running around and making noise, I'm probably going to leave it alone very quickly.
But a mouse is different. Like this is a being that can talk to you. Like while she's capturing the mom, she recognizes it as like a little human. The mom's talking to her. She's like, no, put me down and all this stuff. Like,
but like, don't you think if you saw a tiny person screaming, you'd be like, "Blah," like seeing a mouse, you'd be like,
I would be
God.
like, oh my God. And then if they were talking to me, I'd be like, oh shit.
If you realize you can understand them.
Yeah. I'd be very like, oh my God, I can, what? This is amazing.
Although the mom character does a lot of screaming and not a lot of...
Yeah, she should have talked a bit more when she was getting captured.
Although they did a great job of showing how horrifying that experience might be if somebody rips the top of your house off.
Yeah. I was kind of like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, or yeah, it's Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Yeah.
Where, I mean, that also did a great job of showing the horrors of being tiny.
Being really small. Yeah. I mean, and it's funny because you get that sense where you kind of want to root for them to, you want Sean and Arrietty to like become friends and hang out. But you know, they show just how gentle he has to be with her, because even when she's standing on his hand and he just moves his hand a bit, it's like, whoa, you know? And you realize like, oh, you'd have to really think carefully about, like, they would be so fragile. It reminded me of watching Beastars. That this isn't a spoiler at all, but in the Beastar world, there are carnivores and herbivores, and they are trying to live together. But there's this problem where they're trying to make the carnivores be vegetarian and commingle. But there's these dangers where carnivores will be playing around and accidentally like rip an herbivore's arm off or something because they don't know their strength.
Yeah.
And, I could see when they're like, oh no, it is a bad idea to try to interact with human beings. And it's for that reason that, there's so many ways that they could, even if they're very well-meaning, could accidentally do terrible harm.
Yeah. I mean, there's a scene where Arrietty is like hanging on to Sean's shirt collar and he starts running. And I was like, she would be like flapping up and down. That'd be like huge gusts of wind for her. I mean, even there's a scene where Arrietty is just like climbing the house and she starts hanging out on the shingles on the roof. And then there's like this big gust of wind sound. And I was like, she's going to blow off that thing. Like, I was thinking there's a scene where it was raining too. And I was like, a raindrop would break their neck or something, probably.
Or if they're under the house, imagine a flooding.
Oh my God, yeah.
And I kind of thought that might happen. Luckily, it didn't. And also, when he was running, he has heart problems. And she was even like, are you okay? Because he was like heaving and puffing. But I was like, if he fell while she was on him,
that's
imagine.
The end. That is the end of little Arrietty.
Oh my God. But back to Hara for a second and her sudden change to being the worst.
Yeah.
It's a callback to the original novel, partly. Although that's more horrific because this character says that they're going to get the rat catchers to fumigate the place because they're going to like
in the novel
kill the borrowers.
Oh wow, okay.
And lock the boy in his room the way that Sean was locked in his room, but then takes him out of the locked room so he can watch them die.
Oh my God.
Right? Which is way more horrific.
Dude, I'm glad that you didn't read that. Like, hey, Sean, come here. I got something to show you. You know your little friends? Watch them die.
And then he escapes the clutches of the ant and does something to try and help the borrowers, but it's unclear if the borrowers survive.
Oh no.
At the end of the novel.
That sucks.
Yeah.
Because I was a little sad at the end of this where, after all of the hardship and, the borrowers being discovered and the maid trying to trap them and, I don't know, make them like a circus act or something. They have to move out of the house and they're like, we're going to go, we're done. I was a little sad and I was like, oh man, Sean wanted to be friends with you. And like, you could have had like this mutual beneficial thing. Like Sean was down, the aunt was down. The only person that was not down was the maid. It's like, you could have fired the maid, got another one that was down.
Yeah. I guess the aunt never really sees the sort of bad behavior of Hara.
Yeah.
Well,
the aunt thinks that Hara's like wasted. Yeah. Like, you're going fucking crazy, dude. Like,
and I thought it was a little bit bizarre when the aunt was like, wow, you really need to take a vacation or something. But then she's like, I smell fresh herbs.
Yeah.
And then she like looks in the kitchen and picks exactly, the little tea kettle that they were using.
Yeah.
And looks in and there's like a little leaf of mint or something and some water. And she's like, they do exist.
He does exist. They do exist. Old M&M's commercial.
It was funny her being taken around the house and having the woman go, I really did see them. And then she's like, no, you didn't. And then she smells mint and she's like, they were making tea. They exist.
Yeah. But then she's like, doesn't believe Horace after that.
Yeah.
She's not like, wait, they might exist. Where did you see him? Like, because there's this little tea kettle and they were making tea or something. And so when she does say, like, they do exist, Sean's just sitting in his bed with a book and he's like, yeah, I fucking know. I'm friends with them. The Ansel like, what? You fucking show me. Like, I would have been like, oh my God, you're friends with them? It's like, yeah, don't worry about it. You know, they're cool. Like, Sean's so chill about it. He's not like, hey, shut up. Fucking Hara's trying to, like, kill him. I had to rescue one from a jar.
Great point. Yeah, you'd think he would be like, I made that tiny tea.
Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah, I put that in where they actually live, and then Hara tried to kill one of them. She put him in a jar.
Yeah.
I had to rescue him. Doesn't do that at all.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of sweet that, you know, they say like that they never see each other again, which is true in the book as well. But that they found out that the neighbors down the road started complaining about things going missing.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, that's sweet. But then there's a lot of things that aren't resolved. You know, the fact that, you know, Arrietty kind of needs friends or needs to kind of know that there are other borrowers out there, that the line can continue.
Yeah.
That, you know, her life isn't just doing the borrowing and being with her family. And this kid is having heart surgery soon and might die. Like, if you think about it, there's something very sad about like, oh, there's this like cute little adventure that they have and he saves the family and they're able to get out in time. So that when Hara goes back to find them, it's just, you know, rubble. But then they might just like, you know, go on borrowing and then he might die from his surgery. And
then Arrietty has to fuck Spiller.
oh God. Yeah, let's talk about Spiller for a second.
Yeah. Where did he come from? So the mom is super like, I don't know if there's any borrowers out there at all. And then the dad goes out on a mission and he hurts his leg and he's rescued by Spiller, who is like this kind of uncivilized, like savage borrower.
Yeah, I was trying to wonder what are the good PC words.
Yeah.
Because I was like, you can't say primitive. I don't think you could say that.
Yeah.
Kind of tribal, but
yeah. So he's rescued, and the dad's just like, yeah, it's Spiller. We all know Spiller.
And they said he twisted his leg.
Yeah.
I was like, that's oddly unspecific. The whole thing?
But where did Spiller find the dad? How did the dad know Spiller before? Or was it just like where did Spiller come from? Where does he go? And then the mom sees him. She's like, oh, there are other borrowers out there. Like, she asks Spiller, hey, is there any other? And he's like, yeah, there's like 2 other ones that I've seen.
Although he counts on his fingers really funny, so I don't know if the number of fingers he put up meant 2 or if it meant more.
That's true.
Because he seems to be from an entirely different culture.
Uh-huh.
And he speaks kind of pidgin English. And I'm curious if he has a language of his own. Like,
yeah.
Is English his second language and that's why he doesn't know it very well? Or is the idea that he's kind of been raised by wolves, so to speak, because he says that he doesn't have parents or family? So I don't know how young he was abandoned in the wilderness. But it kind of seems like he's a wilderness borrower and he might not actually borrow things. He might just live off the land.
Yeah, because he has like a pelt that he wears, and they ask him like if he wants to eat dinner, and he pulls out like a grasshopper leg. He's like, no, I got this. And they're all like, gross, dude. Gross. He's like, what?
And he has like a bow and arrow and sort of war paint on his face. I don't know what he's doing there. I think it's a really odd addition because I don't think it's in the book. But the idea is that Pod, the dad, is going out to look for the best path to get to a new house because they need to move home because they've been discovered. And he discovered that was a bad path based on the fact that he got injured.
His entire leg.
He twisted his entire leg. And then Spiller finds him and helps him get back to the house. Which, you know, I could buy, but I just thought it was a really odd addition.
Well, it's also, well, it shows that there's more borrowers out there. But then also when Spiller is about to leave and Arrietty's kind of like walking him out, she's kind of like, so like, you want to come over for dinner or something? Maybe
You want to hang out sometime?
you're the only other person I've ever seen that's our size aside from my parents. So you're pretty cute with that giant dead carcass in your back pocket. Please don't
Very
leave
limited
me.
vocabulary, but it's all right.
Please don't leave me.
I can do the talking. Oh God. But yeah, imagine like if you'd only ever spent all of your time with your parents.
Yeah, that'd be crazy. Well, maybe not. Maybe it's like an allegory of the cave. They don't know any other way, so it's just like whatever. But I guess like the parents have spent time with other borrowers.
Yeah, in the past, it sounds like there were other families that like used to live there and have moved away, but they don't
Yeah.
know if they're still alive or.
You like only heard tales of like, hey, there's other people out there. You'll never see them though. Anyway, let's go get the sugar cube.
Yeah.
We're worried. Are there going to be any other borrowers? There might not be any other borrowers out there. It's like, well, even if there aren't, like your lineage is going to die because you don't go outside of the house and there's no other person.
I kind of wonder if Spiller is supposed to represent the Indian boy who comes, who doesn't speak English very well as his second language, who makes friends with Arrietty in the novel. I didn't know if it was like a little
Like a
shout
nod?
out. Yeah, a little nod maybe, even
I
though
don't know.
it's more like Native American style than, continent of India. But
I have no idea. I don't know.
anyway. Yeah. And I mean, I guess that they gave him a role to take them in a teapot down a river
Yeah.
towards another place. I don't know how they set that up.
Yeah. How did he like get that there?
I don't know. Yeah, and how did they communicate with him? Although the dad did disappear at some point because the poor mom, keeps being in the kitchen when people.
Where she belongs, damn it.
Oh God. But every time somebody like opens it up, she's there and having a fucking heart attack.
Yeah.
And the dad had been resting from his entire twisted leg somewhere. But he doesn't ever seem to be disturbed by the entire roof being pulled off.
Yeah. Well, no, he was.
Oh yeah, that
Yeah, because
first
the
time.
tape fell off of the window.
Yeah, that's right.
But the only part that ever gets like pulled off is the roof to the kitchen and dining room. Like
Right.
there's like a separate other roof that no one ever even bothered to explore.
Okay,
Maybe they
got
couldn't reach it or something. But yeah, the only part that people, the beings actually investigate is the kitchen / dining room.
And they call them beans,
Yeah.
human beans,
Yeah.
which is very cute.
Yeah. They're big, dude.
I thought it was very presumptuous that he replaced their kitchen.
Yeah, that was very crazy. That was
And-
nuts.
And
dude.
again, shows you how little it would take to accidentally do terrible damage to these creatures.
Well, there's also, so when he's replacing the kitchen, it's like an earthquake and everything there's just like rocks falling from the ceiling. But when you look at how he picked up the roof, it's just like a wooden crate. Like there's no reason for all of that debris to be falling.
Yeah, I mean, unless they had kind of built the walls to be attached to it,
Maybe.
because they probably never lift that up themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. That was the part that kind of confused me about that earthquake scene, because I know like the inadvertent damage that people can, even just walking,
Yeah,
like a step would, let me, I don't know. I don't think it would like cause, I just measured like how tall 4 inches would be up against my foot. I don't think that would actually like cause an earthquake.
probably be like it'd be a
little rattle.
You'd be able to feel it because you can feel people when they're walking around.
Yeah, that's
feel,
true.
It'd
be a bit more
It would be
extreme.
more intense than that for sure.
Yeah. Well, I was also thinking about like even just talking at a certain volume could like rupture their eardrums maybe. And if instead of her talking to Sean, she probably would have had to shout like really loud.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. And then I was also thinking about when he was holding her and she's standing in his hand, just his breath.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, because you said something like, imagine if he had bad breath. Like,
Yeah.
how much that would just surround you.
It'd be so much. I feel like standing in front of a jet engine.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Just so much heat.
Yeah.
Probably some condensation that like you don't even know about.
Oh yeah, all those little spittles.
Yeah, just accidentally spit on her and just drown her.
Give her COVID.
Yeah. Just the most extreme COVID.
Viruses that she can actually see because she's so small.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. Like the danger of that is what's so wild to me.
Yeah.
Like the scene with the cat and then the cat is like about to attack Arrietty. That was horrifying to me. And she's just like standing there taking it. Like, dude, run.
And they see a raccoon at night, and I've never seen a raccoon look so terrifying. I mean, raccoons will hiss and growl and stuff, and I have been scared of a raccoon before. But I've never seen one look so regal.
Well, they did intentionally make his eyes like glowing red.
Sure. I mean, but that happens at night, that animals' eyes glow if you have any kind of like light source.
But it's usually green. Like when they do it with the cat, that makes more sense, but never red, right?
I think red can maybe happen. Red can happen in flash photography.
Let's go outside by your dumpster. 'Cause we have definitely seen raccoons by your dumpster.
That's very true. Yeah.
But yeah, just, I mean, it'd be like living in dinosaur world. It'd be Jurassic Park.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Everything is incredibly dangerous for you. But did you like the idea of the sort of process of the borrowing? How it was this sort of like big adventure?
Oh yeah,
they kind of have to like rappel down cabinets, and it's like a canyon adventure.
Yeah, I thought that was super. It was kind of Indiana Jonesy. Like we got to get the idol, which is just a sugar cube.
And you see new tools coming out and like creative ways of using like tiny objects they've stolen.
Yeah, so like at the beginning when they're doing their first borrowing that we see, you know, the dad puts like tape on his hands and feet and he starts climbing up the wall like Spider-Man. And while I was doing that, I was like, that's so cool. But if there's one false move and he falls from, 3 feet up, that could break his spine. So I was like, this is dangerous, dude.
Yeah.
But they have like grappling hooks, which are made out of like earrings and little
And fishing hooks.
And the tape I thought was really creative and super cool. But yeah, like seeing when Arrietty comes out of the cupboard and she just looks out onto the kitchen and how big it is, I was like, this is going to take a lot of time for them to get to that and then come back. And also they do such a good job of the sound design of making everything sound louder than it is. Like that's from the human being world.
Yeah.
And everything they do is like these little tip taps. Like there's a scene where there's a clock and it's ticking and the second hand that's ticking is so loud.
Yes.
And it has this great tension to it as well. And, eventually when Arrietty is kind of discovered by Sean when they're trying to steal a tissue, and she just kind of like hides behind it.
The sound like drops out and you get this like little bit of a reverb.
Yeah.
And you can, like, I think just by the sound design alone, you feel what she's feeling.
Yeah,
that
it's like horror.
My stomach has completely dropped out of my body, and it's just this like I've just made a huge mistake.
Yeah,
and you can feel it. It's so visceral.
Well, it's like that horror movie that I don't know. I think that we watched it together. Don't Breathe.
Yeah,
where it's these people that are robbing a blind man. And so they have to really be super, super quiet because the blind man's senses are heightened because he's blind. And he can like tell where they are based off of like how the sound.
And he's like a former Marine or
Yeah.
something. And it's just incredible fighter. And
great movie.
yeah.
Very tense. But like that scene where she is that first kind of borrowing is kind of like that, where it's, if you get discovered, it could be death because that's what you've been warned about through the first like little bit of this movie. Like the parents are like, you have to be quiet, you have to be out of sight. I kept waiting for like a light to flip on and then they're having to hide behind something. But that never happened. But it was still very tense. And then once Sean's like, I know you're there, I see you. And then Arrietty's just like, oh, fuck. And then she drops the sugar cube and she's like, oh, double fuck. It was very tense.
Yeah.
And as soon as they get back, the dad's like, well, we got to move. The stakes of that were so high.
Well, it was kind of weird because the dad got back and was like, don't tell your mom.
Yeah.
We're not. And then like the next day she sees the kid again. She's like, I mean, I saw that kid again. So blah, blah. The mom's like, what? Mm-hmm. And the dad is like, oh, I guess the cover's blown.
Oh, cat's out of the bag. We got to move.
Yeah. But like, it seemed like he was planning on hiding it from the wife.
Well, Arrietty like flaps her gums.
Yeah.
She's like, I saw the kid. I dropped the sugar cube yesterday, and I guess he figured it out that we exist. And the mom's like, what the fuck? And the dad's like, great. Way to fuck it all up for everybody, Arrietty. Now we got to move.
Oh, man. There was another like cute detail in the novel that wasn't in the movie, that the
Did
borrowers.
you like quick read like the Wikipedia page for the?
Basically, what?
Okay, I was like,
notes.
you said that you didn't read it. I was like, you know so much about this.
Yeah, is that the borrowers, their last name is given to them based on where in the house that they live. So because they either live inside of a grandfather clock or underneath it, they're called the clocks.
Yeah.
So it's Arrietty clock and Pod clock and Homily clock.
That's very cute.
I think that's cute.
Yeah, I did see that, but they never mention it in the movie.
No, and I don't know what you
They're
would
not
call
like,
them.
we're the clocks.
Like, what would they? But they'd be like the floorboards because where are they? They're just under the house.
They're in the closet.
They're under the house, but also accessible from a trap door in the closet.
Yeah.
So I
They're
don't
the
know.
Von Traps. Like, what is it? Sound of Music?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Nailed it.
Yeah, I think I think it's nice that they get saved and they seem to have successfully moved away from the danger and stayed hidden, and that's probably what should happen. But there's something kind of sad about, once it's over, it's kind of like this kid goes back to being really fucking lonely and having this
Dying.
illness. Yeah, and basically, on his way towards death.
Well, no, because he's like, oh, I never saw them again, so he survived.
Well, he maybe.
Well, he said that he heard neighbors talking about how stuff started going missing, so he at least survived a little while because his surgery was the next day at the end of the movie.
Was that it? Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then he's like, and then I heard that the neighbors were missing things, so he at least survived the surgery long enough to hear neighbors be like, what the fuck is my bobby pin?
I think it would have been nice, maybe another callback to the novel I never read. How that it's like a frame story where it's somebody in the story is telling a story. It'd be kind of nice if at the end we find out that it's a frame story where he's telling the story to like his kids or something.
Oh yeah,
so you
who's
like
dying.
Yeah. No.
He's talking to his child that has a heart condition that he's probably going to die from.
And then maybe you could see that like they have borrowers or something because you see one of them like scuttle away. Like, I think that would be a little bit more of a satisfying ending because you'd be like, oh, okay, he survived and he had like a long, happy life. And he gets to share
And now
this.
his child's dying.
Will you stop it? Oh God. And I still think Spiller is a confusing character.
What would you do if you found out that there were borrowers living in your apartment? Like you saw a little 4-inch tall person like scurry across your molding or whatever right now. Would you want to be friends with it, or would you how would you treat it?
I think it would take me a while to believe that it was true.
If you saw it?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd be like, am I having an acid flashback?
How much acid did you do?
Actually, I didn't do very much acid, but I did other drugs in college, and that would be my first thing. I'd be like, this. Maybe I should get my head checked.
I would jump back and be like, what the fuck? And then if I saw it like scurry away, I would immediately like go look where they scurried into and be like, yo, was that a human? I'd be like, hey, yo, is there a human in there, a little human? I'd probably be the maid. I'd be like, what the fuck? I got to figure that out and get somebody in here.
I think that once I move past it's not an acid flashback and I don't have a brain tumor, then I think I would very slowly start to make contact. I would treat them probably like how I treat the trash cat.
There is a group of cats by Cat's Dumpster that she feeds.
Yeah.
They're like homeless stray cats that she just gives food to.
Yeah. And it would probably be like that. And I would approach it very carefully because, like the trash cats, they're probably also very skittish.
Probably, yeah.
So I wouldn't be chasing after them. But I would start to like leave little notes and maybe give them little things and then see if they warmed up to me. And if they didn't, then I would not try to ever push it too far,
Okay. That's a good reaction. I feel like I'd probably do something similar.
Oh, that actually reminds me that Hara talks about that one of the reasons why she has a vendetta against these tiny people is because she's been blamed for all these things that have been lost in the house.
Right.
That just made me remember.
But fucking...
It's extreme.
But the aunt is talking about how there's little people and she calls them the borrowers.
But I think she's kind of doing it in this like...
They don't exist type of way?
Yeah, in the way that a British family right now might say it was the borrowers who took it.
Oh, okay. If I was a maid, I would have leaned into that. I'd just like, it's probably the borrowers.
Just used it as a genuine excuse.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Well, I do remember that now that you brought it up. Because the aunt or the maid is like, I'm going to show her that it's not me losing all these things. I don't know. I feel like that story, maybe we both weren't paying attention, but that storyline wasn't fleshed out correctly.
No, I don't think it was. I think it could have had a little bit more setup.
Yeah.
If you were a borrower,
Okay.
how do you think you'd react to seeing a human or seeing that you've been seen by a human? Would you try to approach them?
Probably not.
Yeah.
I mean, unless they were friendly and kind and calm like Sean, I think that most people would have reacted like we would, jumping in fear. And it's like, hey, we're more afraid of you than they are of them or whatever. That old bullshit line about like bees and sharks or whatever.
Bees and sharks.
I would have been like, oh, fuck. I don't know, because imagine seeing, like, you being seen by 4 inches, 6 feet. I'm 6'4". Like, I'd be so giant to a borrower. Like, we'd be the biggest thing that they've probably seen. Like, also, if you're so terrified of these things that are so dangerous, why live in their house? You know?
Because you want to borrow their stuff. Otherwise you become Spiller, speaking pidgin English and eating grasshopper legs.
I mean, he's doing better.
He seems to be doing all right.
Yeah. I don't know. It just seems really dangerous. Like, you're like, these are the most dangerous things. Let's live where they live. like, yeah, let's go live in a lion's den. Like, what are you doing?
But like little animals do that. Because, I mean, any animals that scavenge at all tend to live close to people.
Which is like, what are those things called that live under sharks? Plankton? They're not plankton, right?
Are you thinking about things that have like symbiotic relationships with...
No, there's fish that live like directly under sharks and like kind of scavenge and
on them and yeah,
and then pick up their leftovers. Yeah, I guess. What would my reaction be if I was a borrower? I mean, I'd be freaked out.
Yeah.
You rightfully so. Like, you could, like we talked about this entire podcast, you could just inadvertently get murked in like a horrifying way. But if like if we spoke the same language, you could talk to them.
Yeah.
You know? Like that's the thing about like mice or something. Like you can't speak to a mouse and be like, "Hey, get out of here," or like, "Hey, do you need food or something?" But if you're a sentient small human, that'd be chill as fuck.
I kind of wonder if borrowers were real, if they would live in larger numbers together.
Like a whole community in a house.
Yeah, like an anthill,
Yeah.
but tiny humans.
Yeah.
And maybe that's how some borrowers live elsewhere, and they're living out in the countryside and in the boonies, and so it is just like, the family.
Mm-hmm.
But like, imagine borrowers in like an apartment building. They could borrow from so many different places.
Oh yeah.
And they could really go unnoticed because that's just one house that they're stealing stuff from.
It'd be like a roach infestation.
Yeah, the little people.
The little tiny people. I think that if borrowers existed, people would want to live in harmony with them, and they'd have their own like beings would build houses and stuff. It'd be so easy to build houses for them.
Don't you think they'd get like enslaved?
For what? Like, what could they do?
They could write your term paper.
No, they can't hold a pen.
How do you know they can't hold a pen?
The pen would be twice as big as they are. Hold on, we have a pen right here.
They could have a tiny pen.
Dude, a borrower would be the size of this pen.
Well, they had pens though. They were just like bug wings.
That was so gross to me.
I thought that was really cool.
But this is how big a borrower would be.
Yeah.
Everybody listening, this is so terrible because you can't see what I'm doing. But it would be
we
as
forgot
big,
how to podcast.
Yeah, it would be as big as this pen that I'm standing up right now. That's still pretty big. And if it was a human and they could hear me and talk to me, dude, people would definitely help them and build houses for them and want to help them. Like they would take up such little space.
I just feel like people try and use them somehow.
For what? Like, I don't know how. Like, I don't know what they'd be useful for.
Well, getting into small places and checking things out that, other people couldn't.
I mean, I'm sure that people would definitely exploit them, but I'm having a hard time imagining like what it would be
Give them
used for.
Tiny weapons and make them kill rats.
That'd be badass.
Do you want to watch that version of Borrowers?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I thought we were going to get something like that at some point in this, but we don't really.
No. You get them brandishing something that looks like part of a Q-tip. I didn't know what it was, but there was a bug that came over and started bothering Arrietty as she's going along with her dad. And it's the first
it was
time
like a roach.
they're about to go for the first borrowing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and she brandishes something at it, and it's like, ew, and walks away. But
yeah, what would you enslave your borrower to do for you?
I wouldn't enslave a borrower.
Of course you wouldn't, you goody two shoes. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what use I would have for a borrower.
Clean my ears out.
Ew, I'll just do that myself.
Oh yeah.
I wouldn't trust a borrower that I've enslaved. They would try and kill me.
Try and poke your brain.
Yeah, I can't think of a good use for a 4-inch tall human.
I'm sure that they could fix things in places you couldn't.
Well, then you pay them. You give them like money.
Throw a nickel at them. Hope it doesn't kill them.
I mean, all they want is sugar cubes.
Yeah, just give them sugar.
That'd be great. Just build a fucking borrower apartment complex in like it's like 4 feet by 10 feet. Like so many of them can live there.
Just imagine this political drama about, borrowers' rights and things.
We should write this.
We shouldn't.
Secret World of Arrietty 2. The downfall of society.
Oh, God.
All right. Well, we got way. Well, we aren't off topic. Are we?
We got tangential.
Yeah.
Sure.
Is there anything else you really want to talk about with this movie?
I don't think so. I think we hit most of it.
We covered it. Am I cranking or are you cranking?
I guess I should go first. I think I'll give it an 8.
Okay.
And part of the reason why it's not higher is because I think that a lot of this is cute. It's very cute and it's so imaginative. And there's so many parts of it that are so lovely and so well explored and well rendered. But I think that the sudden turn of Hara, the maid, is odd and a little bit unmotivated, and it does make you absolutely hate her, and the stakes feel very high. But it kind of felt like it came a little bit out of nowhere and became like surprisingly evil very quickly. And you come away from a movie when you love it with this like amazing feeling, and it's like, I want to watch that again. And I never got that feeling with this movie, but I think that it's totally well done, especially for a directorial debut. I would say bravo.
Yeah. I was gonna say 8 out of 11 too.
Yeah.
It's good. It's cute. Like the world that it creates is very interesting, and I enjoyed it. I didn't really get what was Hara's deal, but there's got to be some kind of conflict and villain or whatever. I think that they could have done that better.
Yeah.
They could have been a different motivation, or like a more consistent and logical motivation for her to like, oh, I'm going to capture these things, because it did just kind of flip.
Yeah.
But, it was enjoyable. I liked it. It's good. It wasn't too long. It told the story, got out of there. It's pretty good. So, 8 out. Like, I think the IMDb score is 7.6 out of 10.
Yeah, that's right.
8 out of 11 is basically that. So, I agree. IMDb, you nailed it. But it's got 95 on Rotten Tomatoes.
Rotten Tomatoes is like that with anime.
Yeah, but I mean, they would say that, a C+ is a positive score.
Right.
So, if everybody's giving it a C+, it's still like, 95%. So, it was good. I liked it. It was very inoffensive. I'd show it to a kid.
Oh, yeah, I'd totally show it to a
It's a
kid.
good kids movie.
Yeah, it'd be a great kids movie.
Well, all right. That is it, everybody. That is our episode on the secret world of Arrietty. Thank you for listening. Follow us on Instagram at the Anime Movie Podcast. If you want to email, the Anime Movie Podcast at gmail.com. Rate and review us. We also have a YouTube channel. Just look up the Anime Movie Podcast. We're kind of getting back into the flow of posting clips and everything. It takes a lot of time. I just got a new job, so that's taking a little bit of time away from making the clips. And we all know y'all love those clips. But thanks for listening. Subscribe to that. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Anime Movie Podcast. You can follow us on Instagram at the Anime Movie Podcast, and you can reach out via email at theanimemoviepodcast@gmail.com. Please subscribe, rate, and review, and tell a friend. Thanks. Have a good one. Bye.